Hello folks, we're still on the Airbus A-300-600 freighter, and I'm going to show you the instrumentation in the cockpit just like if the pilot was doing his checks. Starting with the overhead panel, upper left, here we have your IRSs, your internal reference systems or inertial reference systems, your display. Here we have your flight recorder and a ground control for it. Here's your spoiler and speed brake indication. Here's your rudder switches, so you can turn on and off your rudder travel, slats, flaps, and your control servos. Here we have your hydraulic power panel, where you can turn on your green pump, blue power transfer unit, and yellow power transfer unit. Here are your engine driven pumps. As you can see, there is 2 per each engine. Here you have your hydraulic indication for quantity. The top hat, as we call it, is the indication that you are within the range. Yellow is minimum, and that red dot that you can see right there, it's the very minimum where the system would actually shut off. Here we have your calling for downstairs for mechanics and your lighting. Stepping on a little bit to the right, here we have your anti-ice and your lighting, external lights, strobe, beacon, nose, landing lights, runway turn-off lights, nav lights, and so on. Here's your anti-ice for engines and wings. Here is your autopilot control switches for the pickstream, your damper, and your ATS. Here we have your electrical power, where you have the electrical. Here is your electrical indication. Essential buses and your TRs, what the TRs are doing currently. Right here. Here's your battery voltage. Battery 2, 1, 3. And we leave it on the essential. Here is your HF, one of them. There's your other HF on the other side. Here's the switches for your IRSs, 1, 2, and 3. Coming down the line, here's your landing gear secondary indication, down and up. There is your voice recorder and your test button. Here's your APU fire handle. Here's your number 1 engine fire handle, number 2 engine fire handle. Here's your dome light. Coming down, we have your fueling panel. Shows you all your pumps and your transfer valves. Here we have the digital fueling indication. Here we have your engine start sequences for starting engine 1, engine 2, and your ignition controllers. Here you have your APU start, where you turn on your auxiliary power unit. Here we have your windshield wiper buttons. Going to the right, we have your pressurization panel, where you control the pressurization of the aircraft. Here we have your heating, your probe heat, your window heat panel. Here's your smoke detection and your fire detection. Here is your ventilation for turning on your heating and vent. Over here we have the oxygen. We have 4 bottles, and they each have to average a minimum of 1,000 psi. These are the switches to turn on the oxygen for your crew and for your supernumerary or your passengers on the cargo plane. That's the manual override to drop down the emergency for the oxygen. There's your pack controllers. You can select which way you want to run the pack, either in auto or manual mode. Here is your knobbing for selecting the temperature at the various parts of the airplane. Here's the indication on your pressures and your temperature. There is your pack on and off switches. There is your pressurization switches, how much pressure you have on your bleed air. And right here is your bleed air control, which shows you the engines, crossfeed, APU air, your second engine air. And down here we have your emergency and annunciator panel, where you do your tests and your light tests. Coming down to the center, we have your autopilot control panel here, where you can select autopilot 1, autopilot 2, and command. These are all your knobs that control the autopilot when you're flying using the autopilot mode. Coming down to your center panel is your engine indication right here. Shows you your EGT, which is engine gas turbine temperature, your N1 speed, your N2 speed, and your fuel flow, fuel control. Right here you have some indications on your accumulators and brake temperatures, also your flap and slack, and your standby indicator right here, very important, standby indicator. If all else fails, this will help you fly the plane. Right here we have, right here we have your clock. We have your center display number 1, center display number 2. Here you have your secondary engine instruments. Right here you have your radios and VORs, flight management 1, flight management 2, your throttle controls, speed brake control, flap control, engine start, fuel on, fuel off switches. Here you have more radios and all your control panels for 1 and 2. These knobs here are what the pilots use to control the information on the center units, on your primary and secondary flight displays, which I'm gonna go ahead and turn on right now so you can see. Here they are, they're coming to life. There is your primary and secondary navigation display, primary flight display. You control them with this joystick right over here and this select panel. And finally, here's your yokes, what you use to fly the airplane. You control the yoke by moving their sequence. You can turn on and off. And this is your basic layout of the cockpit of an Airbus A300.